Want to know 10 things every defender should master? Then stick around. Hey, I'm Dylan Joseph, soccer trainer and #1 best-selling Amazon author. To increase your skills, learn how to overcome average performances, and boost your soccer self-esteem, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification icon. Tip number 1, understand PAT, P-A-T, patience, angled toes. So PAT, P-A-T, that stands for patience, angled toes. Patience, what that means is, depending on how good the player is, determines how much patience you should have. So if there's a really good player, you give them a little more time, a little more space, be more patient, wait for them to make that mistake. Versus a worse player, you want to be on top of them, make it very hard, and constantly pressure them. Also, we as defenders do not want to be patient when the other team, the player with the ball, has their back facing the portion of the field they need to travel. You need to pounce on them. They're a lot less effective like this than they are facing you and sprinting at full speed, dribbling the ball at you. And angled, that means that we want to be both angled in our stance and angled to the ball. If I've got an attacker attacking me, say that's an attacker, I don't want to stand directly in front of them like this. They're just going to go to the other side. We want to be slightly off, forcing them in one direction, and often in the middle of the field, that's to their opposite foot, or if they're along a sideline, that's out of bounds. We want to make sure that we can push them. Lastly, we want to be on our toes. That means we're active and on our toes so that we can constantly rotate, switch, and explode when we need to, when that striker does and we need to keep up. Tip number 2, know your major reason for what your purpose is on the field, and that's to stop the other team from scoring. Slowing the speed of play is often as effective as stealing the ball altogether. So make sure to avoid reaching in for the ball in most instances and allowing them to just blow by you and speed up the play versus giving them a little more space and time for your teammates and other defenders and midfielders to get back in support and in help. Tip number 3, which piggybacks off of point number 2, and tip number 3 is make sure that as a defender you avoid using most foot skills. So the cross and pass fake, as well as when your back is facing the direction you need to go and you're doing the step over to fake to go in one direction and take it in the other, are acceptable in limited situations as a defender, but your main goal is to try to avoid situations where you actually even need to use a foot skill, because as a defender you have a lot to lose if you lose the ball on the back line. As a defender you have a ton to lose if you lose possession of the ball on your back line, versus a defender has very little to lose if you dribble past them, because you still have pretty much the rest of the team to beat. Tip number 4, when in doubt, kick it out. Forwards are trained to recognize instances where there's a very high chance that they'll be able to steal the ball from a defender, like when a defender's back is facing the entire field. Forwards are generally good in 1v1 situations, so when in doubt, just kick that ball out of bounds. And when your team's winning, kick it really far out of bounds. Tip number 5, scan the field before you get the ball. As a defender, before you even pass the ball, make sure you're constantly scanning, trying to have a plan of what to do, so when that ball is played to you, you may see an opportunity for that quick one-touch pass that puts your team in a very good situation to be able to score on the other team. Tip number 6, make sure you're constantly using your arms and putting them against other people on the other team, except when you're in your own team's penalty box. Most refs rarely ever call when your hands, especially your forearm right here, is pressed up against someone else on the other team. Therefore, use your arms to make yourself wider and bigger, and to commit tactical fouls when you're not in your own team's defensive third of the field. Tip number 7, prevent the dribble. And could you give this video a like? So if the other team has 2 forwards, one of them is noticeably better than the other, make sure that someone sticks like glue to that other forward and makes it very hard for them to get the ball. And even if you want, you can create a little more space for that other forward to get the ball if you think you have a pretty good chance of being able to steal it from them. You definitely don't want their best player on their team being open. You want it to seem like the other player, the lesser player, is more likely to be able to do something with it because maybe they have a little bit more space, instead of force feeding their best player even if there's a person on them. Tip number 8, remember, you're not the only defender. Remember, the defenders are referred to as the back line, and they're referred to as one thing because they need to all work and communicate together. Over communicate, yell out directions, help each other's weaknesses, and make sure to push other players on the other team to the most congested parts of the field so that you have more teammates being able to swing their feet and trying to steal or poke away the ball. Tip number 9, be physical. There are players out there, especially other teams' forwards, that prefer speed and don't like the physicality of soccer, especially when you push them around a little bit, so you can really throw them off their game if you're physical with them. So technically, I'm a forward, But as a forward, I know that defenders are constantly trying to get inside my head and make it so that I'm playing mind games. And that's exactly why you gotta do it. It feels so good to shut down the best player on the other team. And tip number 10, I alluded to this one already, if the other team has an all-star forward or player, make sure someone on your team sticks to them like glue. It makes it very difficult for them to receive any passes. As a forward, I hate it when other teams man mark me because it means that I'm gonna get the ball less times during that game, and the entire game I'm gonna have someone pestering me when I'm just trying to get open so I can get the ball so I can do something productive, such as get an assist or score for my team. To avoid missing out on all the steps to easily stop the other team, make sure to grab the book Soccer Defending using the link in the description below. So subscribe to avoid missing the next weekly video and click here for the top 10 tips for a midfielder.